This is the Myford University podcast, episode 14. Thinking backward to move forward. How inversion thinking will save you from stupid mistakes. Yes, we're talking about inversion thinking today, folks. Welcome back to Myford University. George Sloan, Dean. We're going to cut through the fluff and get you some practical skills and frameworks that you can actually use. Today's episode is one of my favorite mental tools. It's one I've used in business, decision-making, coaching, planning, even personal growth. It's inversion thinking. And once you know how powerful it is, you'll start flipping every problem you face. And there's a hint there. It's also in the name, turning things around. So let's get to it. What is inversion thinking? Most people are taught to think in a straight line. Remember, we talked about linear thinking in the last podcast. What do I want to achieve? What steps do I have to take to get there? Well, that's fine and it works sometimes. But other times, and in this world we live in today, problems are getting more and more complicated. But if the problem that we tend to focus on is what we hope will work, it's not going to go the way you think every single time. So, inversion thinking will flip the script. That's right, we're going to flip things around. So instead of thinking, how do I succeed? You might want to ask, how would I totally fail at this? I know that's not positive thinking, but actually it is. Think about it for a second. Instead of charging forward, you look backward from the worst case outcome and work in reverse. This is the core of inversion thinking. Charlie Munger, if you haven't heard of him, interesting fellow, recently passed. He is Warren Buffett's longtime partner, and he put it this way. Tell me where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there. Sounds kind of morbid, but it's actually brilliant. Charlie Munger was one of the biggest proponents of inversion thinking, and you can learn a lot from him. Again, you should Google him. So let's talk about why inversion thinking works so well. And when you think about it, it's really logic and common sense. So we all make plans with the best case scenario in mind. Oh, I'm going to succeed. Well, what if you, to succeed, wanted to first look at how you might fail and avoid doing those things to fail, which might lead you to the success you're seeking, right? But, again, the real world doesn't care about your plans. It will throw you obstacles. There's bad timing. There's wrong assumptions. Oh, God, I hate that word. Don't assume, suspect, investigate, and conclude. Use my NASIC model. Never assume or no assumptions. Suspect, investigate, and conclude. Human error will sometimes come into the mix. So inversion thinking will help you avoid predictable futures. It's no guarantee 100% because there are no guarantees in this life at all. But inversion thinking will expose risks and blind spots. It will help you simplify your complex goals, and it makes you more resilient. Why? Because you've planned for it. You've thought about it. It forces honest self-assessment. I always say, be honest about things. Intellectual honesty is a critical foundation in order to get things done. Inversion thinking will also help you save time and money and pain. We all want the path of least resistance. Sometimes we've got to do a little bit of work, but it is what it is. So honestly, most of the time we do not fail because we didn't know enough. We fail because we didn't stop ourselves from doing something stupid. Inversion helps you see the dumb moves before you make them. Again, it's kind of contingency planning. Always want to think about what's the worst case scenarios. All right, who should use this? It's not just for CEOs or investors. Charlie Munger was a very famous investor, but again, it's not just about them. Here's who might want to use it, or more likely should use it. If you run a business, you lead a team, if you're building something new, if you're stuck on a big decision, if you want to improve your health, finances, or career, inversion thinking is for you. And yes, this is something you'd be exposed to in a quality MBA program, but you don't need an MBA to use it. Just a little bit of discipline and curiosity, and as I always say, little logic and common sense. Not as rare, not as available these days. It's more rare, but want to use it. And inversion thinking will help you do that. So, when do you want to use inversion thinking? Well, here are some perfect moments to use inversion. Before you launch a new offer, ask, what would make this flop? Take a moment and think about that. During strategic planning, you might go, how could we miss our targets? If you thought about that, you can do things to circumvent or avoid, right? When you're hiring someone, you might want to ask, what kind of hire would destroy our team? I always want a good cultural fit. I don't necessarily believe that you want a sycophant or someone who just, doesn't have original ideas, but you don't want someone who is toxic either. When you're setting goals, you might want to say, what would cause me to abandon this? A lot of people start out the first of the year with certain goals in mind, and before they even get to February, most of them have already quit. So this is a very powerful tool when the stakes are high and the path forward is unclear. Again, you want to have a map, but at the same time, you also want to have backup plans, just in case. All right, so where does this apply? I'll give you some real examples. In business, we'll start with that, then we'll talk about in life. So let's say you're launching a new product. Most people ask, what features should we add? Right there, you're starting off on the wrong foot. You want to start with what the customer's problems are and what benefits they are seeking. So you'll see that in a second. With inversion, you want to ask, what would make people hate this product or never use it? Right? Some things might be confusing onboarding, bad customer service, unclear messaging, no proof or results, overcomplicated features. You fix those things and suddenly your launch looks a lot smoother. I always say you want to start with the customer. What is their problem? What is the pain point for them? What is it that you can do that they're willing to pay you to do it because it'll eliminate that for them? So always start with the customer in mind and then create the product out of that. All right, let's talk about in life. You're trying to get in shape. Most people start with, what workout should I do? You might want to try this instead. What behaviors would ruin my health efforts? Here's some ideas. Poor sleep, emotional eating, unrealistic plans, no accountability, and skipping meals. Inversion brings clarity, and clarity leads to results. So think what could go wrong and do things to counteract it. It'll help you get to a successful outcome. All right. Here's the big one. Again, Myford University, it's all about, well, you can learn it, but we want to really focus on using it so we can get real-world outcomes. So how do you use inversion? Here's a step-by-step process. I'll give it to you as simply as I can. Step 1, define your goal. I want you to be very specific here. An example, I want to build a $100,000 coaching business. So, step 2, you want to ask, what would guarantee that I fail at this? And write down the dumbest and most destructive things you can think about. You don't talk to clients. You don't build without validating. Or, I'm sorry, you're building without validating. You want to validate. I always think of it the right way. You undercharge. You're worth more than you think. Don't just look at what others in the market are doing. If you're providing something really powerful, then charge for it. I think Seth Godin says something I really like on this. Charge more for more. Let that sink in for a second. Another thing, never following up is a destructive thing. Trying to be on every social media platform at once. Step number 3, spot the threats. Are you already doing any of these? Or are you about to? Want to rethink some of that sometimes. Step 4, build your plan to avoid the failure points. This is where Charlie's ideas really come in. What would I have to do to screw this up? So now you're not just chasing your success, you are removing your obstacles to it. Think about that for a second. All right, let me share with you my personal approach to inversion. Here's something that I do. I don't use the word assume very often. I put that as that very often because sometimes, especially in financials, sometimes you have to make assumptions. You have to assume an interest rate, for example. But I hate the word assume. I hate assumptions. I've said before, the old joke of when you assume, you make an ass of you and me. So instead, I use two better words. I suspect and I conclude. And I've also come up recently with my NASIC model. My NASIC model is no assumptions, suspect, investigate, and conclude. Okay? We'll have more on that on myforduniversity.com. So that one change alone really helps me avoid jumping to premature decisions. I ask why constantly. I've talked about this before. My favorite question is why. My second favorite is what if. But I constantly ask why. And inversion helps refine my conclusions. When I plan a business move, I don't just say, this should work. I ask, what if this completely fails? How would I explain why? And if I do that, I usually come up with reasons that I can work around and come up with contingency plans for. So effectively, that forces me to slow down and get very honest with myself. Again, I talk about the idea of intellectual honesty quite a bit. It also helps me avoid self-inflicted wounds, and it saved me more than once. I'm telling you, this thing works, folks. All right, I always like to tell you what the pitfalls are. So a few reminders when using inversion. Don't confuse it with pessimism. It's strategic. This is not you being Debbie Downer. It's you accepting, being a realist and accepting what some of the risks and problems are going to be and dealing with them. 2, do not overanalyze to the point where you never act. Gosh, I talk about this all the time too. You can prepare, you can plan, but you've got to execute. No analysis paralysis, folks. Number 3, do not use it only for yourself. Ask your teams to do it too. Many heads is better than one head. You know, there's something to be said about getting the ideas and thoughts of other people because they may think of something that you didn't think about or look at it from a different perspective. Number 4, don't stop at just the problems. Build plans to fix or avoid them altogether. You know, that's a big point in terms of when you get into safety management. You want to, and risk management. You want to avoid problems if you can. You want to transfer problems if you can, or you want to have plans and workarounds to deal with them. All right, we're coming to the end, folks. If there's one thing I've learned after many years of doing this in business and life, it's this. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to avoid doing dumb stuff constantly. Think about that one for a second. Inversion thinking helps you with that in particular. So the next time you're planning on doing something, whether it's big or small, first thing you want to ask yourself is, what's the worst move I could make here? Next thing you want to ask is, what would absolutely cause this to fail? And next is, what do people in my position usually overlook? I've mentioned this before. I will sometimes at the end of almost any meeting or even an interview say, is there anything I should be asking that I'm not asking? Because sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And it never hurts to ask. You don't look stupid. You actually look intelligent because you're aware enough to ask the right question at the right moment. So when you ask these particular questions, the next thing you want to do is work backwards. You want to avoid these landmines and obstacles, and you want to watch out and make sure that things go much smoother because you've thought it out ahead of time. So here's to sum this up. Flip the question, find the truth, and act wisely. That's how smart people think. That's how pros stay sharp. That's how people get things done and succeed when others will fall by the wayside and fail. So if that's how you want to operate, think like someone who actually wants to get results and consider using inversion thinking. I want to thank everyone for listening to Myford University podcast. If you want to learn more about inversion thinking, I have a full article on myforduniversity.com/blog. It's also available in the newsletter. There's the podcast, and I'm just starting to put up a lot of the YouTube videos, so check those channels out. So until next time, stay curious, stay sharp, and don't forget to think in reverse. Check out myforduniversity.com, where you learn it fast and apply it faster. We will see you the next time. Thank you.